Right, so we're going to move on to the agency panel. And as I mentioned before, this is a subject near and dear to my heart, having spent 20 years running a games marketing agency. And I'm absolutely thrilled that this lot agreed to come and chat to me. Because I think we can all agree we're the absolute powerhouse of agency representatives. And I'm going to get you each to introduce yourselves, because I'll do a terrible job of that. So if you want to grab, you have to share the mics, make sure they're switched on. And Lou, you're the first to grab, so if you can keep the mic nice and close to your mouth and tell everybody, who are you, where are you from?
Hello. Hi! Ooh. Hello. Hello. My name's Lou Jones. I work for YRS TRULY. We are, I feel like I just say we're a great marketing agency for games, but we all are. So you probably hear that twice more. I'm a creator campaign manager, which means I manage campaigns with creators. Big brain titles here. So yeah, working with the creators and influencers is my day to day, and I absolutely love it.
All right.
Woo, thank you. All right.
Hi, I'm Ruby Adams. I work with Disobey. I'm the lead strategist there. We do everything from community building to social to creator and influencer campaigns. So my job is to kind of look at the strategy side of things, do the big thinking. Hello, how you doing? So I'm in charge of the big thinking bits of strategy and working with all the lovely clients we have. So.
Hello, my name is Lauren, my pronouns are she, they, and they, she now. And I was just standing at the back having a lovely chat. Sorry about that, guys. I do marketing at Neonhive. It's a really super inclusive agency focused on accessibility and kindness and diversity. And I love our team so much. I think that's everything.
And I'm Thomas Reisenegger. I'm the co-founder of Future Friends Games. We publish games like Exo1, Liznara, Omno. And we also have PR, marketing, social media manager, agency, work on stuff like Vampire Survivors, What the Gold. I do lots of different things, including TikToks, planning things, trying to run the company, all that stuff.
Fantastic. So we're going to dive straight in, and Lauren, as you were late, I'm going to start with you, and if we can get your thoughts on indie games and marketing. It's probably, for anybody who's an indie game developer, it's probably, oh yeah, I need to do that, oh, I've got this game to make, I'll get around to it, yeah, I know it's really important, I'll get around to it. And that doesn't always happen. I want to know from each of you your point of view on when an indie dev should start considering their marketing plan, and perhaps what are some pragmatic first steps. And Lauren, if you keep the mic right close to your mouth, then the people at the back have a chance of hearing it.
Sure. So, from my personal perspective, that starts as soon as you start thinking about the kind of game you want to make. Especially if you're focused on kind of commercial game development over hobby game development, moving away from the speaker. Because let's be real, if you are trying to make money from your game, you need to know what other games are coming out that are like your game, or what games have come out that people like, that are kind of like your game, or even ones that aren't like your game but are still out. It's good knowledge for you to have. So first steps on how to do that is have an idea of what you want to make. Then look on Steam, look on itch, look on Xbox, look on all the stores, see what's come out. If you're looking for PC, there are some really good free websites like SteamDB. Get that on your list of places to look. It's got so much information when it comes to market research. Is there anything else I would do as first steps?
We can pass on to Lou, if that's all right.
Yeah, as soon as you start thinking about making a game, please, oh my god, do not go to any sort of marketing person and say, hey, what's up? My game's coming out in 2 weeks, what can you do? Because they will really politely tell you to get lost, because there's really nothing you can do at that stage. Even the best marketer in the world will not be able to make that much of an impact. So really, there is no too early a time to bring a marketer on into your team. from the very beginning, before you even got your first build, sort of like playable ready, having someone on your team whose sole job is thinking about branding and messaging, how do we talk about this game, how do we present this game, can actually really help in forming what your game will look like as a cohesive product at the end. If you don't start thinking about how do I message this game, how do I talk about this game to other people, if you can't give me a one-sentence descriptor of what your game is, even at the beginning of development, you need a marketer, because that's your marketer's job, is to give you that one-sentence line of what your game is and what makes it different. So bring him in right at the beginning, please. God.
I completely agree. The earlier the better, and it's not just about knowing what your game is, that's hugely important, but knowing who's going to play your game. Because I think the answer to that is always people kind of come to you and say, there's people like me. Who is that? Is it people who are absolutely obsessed with owls? Is it absolutely someone who just like platformers? Knowing everything to know about your game and understanding how that sits within the market is part of the thing. It's not just putting posts out on Twitter or contacting creators. It's a much more holistic process. But yeah, get us involved as soon as possible. We can help you really come up with those comms. Holistic is a good word. Thank you very much. I've read a dictionary.
And Thomas, that's why you've got the short end of the stick because all the good ideas are taken. But anything you'd like to add?
All the good bits.
Yeah, I could have a bad idea. I would say people shouldn't be scared of doing marketing for their game. So often see that people want to be really perfect and have their first trailer and then they wait for it and nothing happens. Because that's usually what happens, that nobody sees it anyway. Like, it's so hard to get attention that I'd rather you go and just try, and if it doesn't work, nobody's seen it, and just try again. Obviously, if you're already really famous, you release 10 games, that's different. But most of those people don't watch marketing panels. So I would say, if you're new or like it's one of your first games, just not being afraid of it and just tackling it, I think is a good plan.
Yeah.
Fantastic, great advice. So I'm going to flip the tables and instill the ultimate power in each of you now. So what I want for anybody who is an indie dev or considering engaging with a marketing agency, we're indies, we've not necessarily got AAA budgets, we're not as flush as some of the other big studios, so we've got to make our money go as far as we can, and we do that by making ourselves really easy to work with. So from each of your perspective, how can an indie dev make themselves great? And perhaps from your perspective, what would be your ideal engagement when working on an indie project? And Thomas, we'll start with you this time, because you went late last time.
I think really generally, if you look for like an agency, just like knowing kind of what you want is really helpful. And if you send that first email and actually put a pitch in that, put your links in it, maybe a playable build, anything that just like speeds up the conversation is like incredibly helpful. And then I think I really also appreciate it if people just tell us if there's any niches they want, how they want to communicate with you, and kind of just their plan. Obviously, you don't need to know what you want in detail, but like as much as you think, at least you know, because then maybe we disagree or like we have other recommendations, but at least you know where you're standing. So that's something that often doesn't happen. It is super, super helpful. We get a lot of pitches as an agency, so like already seeing you've got that mindset, you're prepared, you're like ready to hit the ground running is really super helpful.
Completely agree. Having a goal, having some sort of idea of what you want to achieve through your marketing is really important, whether that be obviously get as many sales as bloody possible, or whether it's to connect with other B2B people, you're looking for investment. All these things are great goals for your marketing. The other thing that would be really good is people being really open, honest, open those lines of communication, because the more we know about your game and what makes your game amazing and why people are going to get absolutely rapidly excited about it, that's what we're going to be able to use to show off that sparkle things in the public eye. So yeah, let us know what you love about your game and who you want to get excited about it.
That was very good. Also just having an open mind and being sort of creatively and sort of flexible. I'm sure no game dev starts making a game being like, hell yeah, I can't wait to market the hell out of this thing. This is going to be so much fun. So when you go to an agency, absolutely be open with what you currently have, where you're currently at, but also what you don't know. You don't have to come to us and pretend you're a marketing guru. you wouldn't need us if you were. So be honest with what you don't know. Feel free to ask questions that you think are stupid, because when we see that, we see someone who is open, who is, has good communication skills, that we are going to have a really good, fun, authentic time working with. Marketers might see your game in a totally different way that you never expected, and can open doors for you that you didn't even know were there. So having an open mind and not having a stringent plan in your mind when you go to an agency, because if you've got one specific plan, don't come to us, because we're not just going to follow your steps. We're going to use our experience to be able to build something out for you, together with you. So basically what I'm just saying is, be nice, please.
Yeah, the point I was going to make was just be kind, be a nice person. Marketing can be scary. It's one of those mysteries of the world where there are a lot of variables and a lot of unknowns. But it's very similar to programming, which I imagine a lot of indies might be more familiar and more comfortable with. It's a lot of trial and error. It is a lot of testing. So I hope that's the way marketers and indie devs can connect. What else? Be nice. Don't be a jerk. Same thing. Oh, you got one more thing.
Send us all your assets, please.
Yes.
Anything you have. Concept art, images, little sketches you've done on the back of a napkin. Just send us everything. Let us know what you want shown to the public and what you don't. Please. But any images, any notes you have about the game, anything. We want to see it all. Not immediately, but after we've had a little chat. So if you send it immediately, it's sticky.
And I guess to wrap up, if you've got a build and you're at that stage, amazing. Like, one of the first things we'll do is play your game and try and understand it, because how are we going to market your game if we don't understand it? We don't get a chance to play it. So if you've got a build, amazing. Send it straight away. We'll get around to it.
Very cool. And we're obviously hearing some familiar anecdotes to what we were hearing from Suzanne. It's amazing, these marketing people, these creative marketing folks, it's like, let's treat each other as humans. We've got creative pursuits, openness, transparency, kindness, and I think there's, as was said before, these aren't people to be afraid of. Be open, be prepared to be wrong.
Look at us, we're not scary.
I mean, I'm terrified, but... So, one of the things I find really intimidating about the world of games marketing, I mean, is it anybody, show of hands, anybody jumped on Threads yet? Yeah, so that's been out, 3 days? Was it tens of millions, 100 million users, whatever it is? There's probably people here last week were thinking, I really need to get more tweets out, or I need to jump on TikTok. Now there's a new thing. As professionals, really keen to hear, how do you keep on top of the most popular channels, and how do indies know where they should invest their time? And let's go back the other way. So Lauren, I'll let you start again.
I love this question so much. The one thing that no matter which developer I'm working with, you have finite time, you have finite energy, whether that's physical or emotional. You do not need to be on every single channel. Pick one, and pick one that works well for you and the way you like to communicate. How to know the latest ones, honestly, that comes through a lot of just organic research that you might just see kind of scrolling through your own social media or news websites you read, like gamesindustry.biz. One thing I would say is to kind of have like your personal social media that doesn't involve work, and then a work social media where you can follow all those companies that can be talking about stuff like that, so you look after your mental health and your well-being.
Love that. Totally echo that. You do not need to be on every social platform. You do not need to be active on every single one of them. Stop posting on Facebook. It's not going to help, I promise. But really, it's overwhelming when you look at it. What I would say is really get to know who your audience are, who your players are, and then where are they hanging out? What's their favourite platform? If you start to, for example, act like what you want your player to be on certain platforms, you might find more of them one place than another. For example, on TikTok, if you start interacting with posts, that you think your audience will interact with, do you see a natural, organic inclination towards more of that content? Or is the well pretty dry and there's not much activity there? Okay, cool, we know that's not really the platform for you, let's look somewhere else. So really try and embody, who is this person that I'm pitching to, and where are they hanging out, and how can I join them?
Stole the words right out of my brain. But no, I completely agree. I think obviously being chronically online helps because you get to see it all. But I think exactly we are chronically online. But I think it's so important to understand where your community is, what your community is, and who they are, and where they hang out. It might be that you've got a huge Facebook following of older people who are then there, they're not in any of the social media. Maybe that is perfect for you. It's not about necessarily being on the most trendy places for the sake of it. It's about being really clever and targeted. Go to kind of hear what the best thing to do is. Go to things like this. You're in the right place already. Go talk to marketers. Go pick their brains at things like this. Come ask me afterwards. I've got a load of people who are really into dogs and I want to pitch them a game. Ask me where that is. Yeah, exactly. I can find you the Instagrams to kind of go follow. But I think, yeah, it's really important to kind of know your community and also know what you're trying to get out of that platform. Like TikTok for discoverability is bloody brilliant, but it might not be the best place to build a community really quickly. Whereas in like Twitter, that's kind of a more talkable place. I'm stopping because Twitter is Twitter at the moment. But I think it's about working out what you want from the platform and then find the right one for you.
Very much agree with that. Very smart. I think if you don't know that much about games marketing or you don't have a ton of time with it, to like just stay up to date with the trends, like two things I really like is marketing newsletters. I think are great. Simon Carlin's newsletters, Chris Kukowski's newsletter, How to Market a Game. I think they're really good summaries and you get them once a week and they're quite digestible. And then I think the hardcore version of that is just being on Twitter all the time. I think like it's really good. You learn like about Reddit, about TikTok, you learn about Steam features. You can learn pretty much anything on Twitter. It is for free if you don't consider your health. Because you might pay that, but there's a lot of good information and I still use it a lot for that. So I think it's a great source of knowledge for that.
Brilliant, thank you. So yeah, it's free, just cost of your health. Fantastic. So in the run-up to your game launching, we talk about kind of like big beats, two predominant ones being your announce, the all-important announce, and then your actual launch. And what are whatever other moments you can manufacture to kind of celebrate and make some noise? In these big beat moments, in your experiences, what are some of the common oversights or mistakes that you've seen people make? So yeah, give us a heads up so we don't need to make those mistakes. I'm just going to go back the other way again, just to keep it nice and fair.
Yeah, I think almost well, we see a lot of like more back-end things. Like on Steam, it happens quite a lot that people launch, but they forget to put on like the launch discount and they change the price too late. Those things are quite inflexible. So I think there's just a few big system things I would definitely keep an eye on. And then other than that, I think just like, you know, be prepared and reach as many platforms as you can. I think especially working with first parties, smaller teams often forget. Like you can get a PlayStation blog if you make a PlayStation game. It has really good reach. They do that for free, it's great, but you need to get in touch quite a lot of, like, really long ahead of time. So I think like staying in touch with like Steam and Nintendo and PlayStation, I think that's something I often see that smaller studios maybe forget and then focus more on social media, which is also great and important, but obviously that first party support can really make a difference, but they just need a bit of time.
That's really good, I like that. I think one of the things I see a lot is when people they take those big marketing beats and they go, right, I've got launch, I've got my demo, I've got this, and they make huge fusses around that time, which is obviously important, but then let everything lull and kind of die in the interim. And it's important to try and keep that slow, steady growth throughout. That it shouldn't just be, we put everything in launch, but we don't talk to anyone for 6 months beforehand, because no one will see your content, and it'd be a real shame, because you probably put a lot of effort in there. I think the other thing is also kind of remembering that it's hitting those beats and being careful with your timing. You see some people who kind of bring a game out at the same time as Baldur's Gate 3, and then you're going, well, shit. I'm not going to get any reach on these social platforms because I'm competing with a behemoth of a social team that has unlimited budget, seemingly. So timing is another thing I would say is really important. Got your own mic.
All right. One mistake I see, especially new devs fall into, is being really precious about what you show about your game, both around announcement and launch, wanting to hide things from your screenshots and your trailer because you think they're spoilers, or teasing things about your game when no one has heard of you or your studio. I'm really sorry to have to tell you this. It's not a teaser. If someone wasn't expecting your game in the first place, we can tease Zelda as much as we like because people are expecting Zelda. They want small little crumbs of stuff. People don't know about your game. They don't know it exists. You don't know you exist. Teasing your game is not going to do anything. So being precious with things in your trailer, like dynamic moments that happen in your game that you think are super end game huge spoilers. Like, if it's a dramatic moment with no context in the trailer, it's going to catch attention. They're not going to be like, oh, well, this is the end of the story for me, ruined. I think, not to promote another person on this panel, but Thomas has a great talk. Is it no one cares about your game? Really good, definitely look it up. Thomas is very good, but it basically vocalizes what a lot of us try and say to devs is, no one cares about your game and it's your job to make them care, so why are you holding back? Show everything you've got, because it's a big old world out there and you've got to make a statement somehow.
I love it. I do hate that everything I wanted to say has already been said. Trying to think if there's anything else. My main point was going to be, don't rush. Think of these beats, and this has already been said, but think of these beats kind of as soon as you start planning your game, as soon as you start thinking about marketing. All this stuff should be thought about as early as possible. And I was going to talk about community management in what might be a later question, but kind of comes back to another point that was already covered on this question. So, yeah, definitely. Yeah, don't rush.
So then let's do you on, and maybe this is the question that's going to come back to. So let's say you are running your own indie studio, and you've got to decide where to invest your time, your finances, your resources in order to get the best return on investment for that time spent. All right, what might that look like for you?
Well, my first question is how much money do I have?
Well, we're indies, so not very much.
Yeah. So invest in a good community manager as early as possible, because you want people to get the word out about your game. Guess what? Your players and your community are going to do that for you. And we're talking about scaling up during each key beat. Well, who's going to do that for you? Your community manager, who is going to keep your players engaged. And while community management is kind of adjacent to marketing, it's the most important thing you can do as far as I'm concerned.
Hey. In terms of return on investment, I could give you a very sort of dry answer. We see things like TikTok campaigns usually have a pretty good cost to view ratio, but that's not what you're here for. If I had to say to folk, your cost isn't just your monetary value, it's also your time. In terms of return on investment on your time as a person, as a dev, as someone who cares, I don't believe there is any wasted time when you put actual focus into what your game is and how you're talking about it and the strategy behind it. I see so many devs getting super, super excited when they start marketing. They want to work on their first trailer. They want to start reaching out to journalists. They want content creators to play their game. Great, cool. What game are they playing? How are you describing it? What does it look like? If your game was a person, what would they act like? What's the personality of your game? How do they talk? How do they act? If you don't know any of this about your game, and I like to think of it as the base of the pyramid, right? If you don't know your game's tone of voice, or what it looks like, or how it feels, or how it sounds, at your base, everything else you layer on top of it is going to crumble. Your trailer isn't going to have a cohesive tone to it. Content creators aren't really going to know what your game's about. Press aren't going to cover it because they haven't really got a cohesive idea quickly of what the game actually is. So anything you try and pile on top of that, it's just going to fall apart. Take some time. I know it feels like wasted time because you're not doing anything, but you are. Just take some time, think about what your game is and how you're going to talk about it.
You stole my strategy answer. Yeah. Mean. But no, I completely agree with everything you just said. Think about the why behind your what. There's no point just kind of shotgunning tweets out there in the hopes that someone's going to look at it when you don't know what you're trying to say.
That was a very conclusive way of
Thank you. I am the miming is pretty good as well, I thought. No, I think it's really important to think about what you're doing, plan what you're doing, and be really strategic. I think we come back to what we were saying earlier about the channels. Don't just have 50 gazillion channels because you feel like you should be on every channel. Find the ones where your community are already existing. Find the ones where you can highlight the best things about your game. If your game is hugely visual, TikTok's great, Instagram's great. If it's all about the kind of community and it's all about kind of, it's a text-based game. Twitter's your best friend because that's where all people are already chatting and they're already talking. It's about being clever about where you spend your time, not just running with it and hoping for the best. I would also say, like you said, get someone to the community, get someone who is full-time on that or at least part-time on that, because those are the people who can take your marketing to the next level. It's not just you doing it on a random Thursday hoping that you've got 10 minutes. You can do all your marketing for the next 6 months. Take your time, make sure you dedicate time to it and dedicate someone's time to it.
Yes, I would say like the first thing I would focus on, and it kind of mirrors the last answers, is like everything that's on your store page. I think that like, if you think about your Steam store page or a Switch store page, you got your trailer, you got your game description, like it kind of forces you to like sit down and describe your game and make it a small little package that people understand. And I would also think the store page is for most games the #1 traffic source, even if you have big social media, even if you have big influence outreach, like whatever, the biggest source of traffic is always going to be the store. There's loads of people that will never see a game anywhere else, so they're just going to see a store page. So I think like sitting down, making this store page perfect, and then go from there would be my to-go.
Very good, and that echoes nicely what we were listening to from Chris this morning. If you're going to get blessed by Steam, you're going to be ready for that, and yeah, your Steam store page is the absolute point of that. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to pose to our panel? So yes, Connor. So just to make sure I'm getting this right. So the question is, should we be involving our peer group early on in our marketing efforts and what we can learn from those to feed back into our marketing plan? Is that the gist of what you're...
More like in person, like having people like behind their shoulders watching.
Like launch event stuff where you get people together.
I think if you know who you're talking to, if you talk to other devs and they give you like game design feedback or whatever, that's probably great. I think purely from players, if you're experienced and you know how their feedback is usually given to you, you can probably get value out of it. What I see a lot of first-time devs, they go to Gamescom, people play their game and they're like, do you like it? And people are like, yes, great. Because there's not many people that tell you to face, like, actually I was really bored. Like, there's no point, they just move on. So like, if you know they're trying to be polite, then maybe you get them in a conversation to actually find out and be like, would you actually buy this? Please be honest. Maybe you get something out of it, but I think you need to be like really sure that you know, are they just being polite to your face, or is this actually the consumer experience they're going to have?
Just off the back of that, like any sort of events that you might hold sort of across your game dev cycle, getting people in a physical place, you need to have sort of like a reason for doing it, not just doing it for the sake of it. If you're there to capture content of people playing, that's really cool. What are you going to do with that? Is that useful? Is that something that could have been, could another asset really could have been used for that? Are you there to gather them for feedback? Cool. How are you collecting that feedback? What's it going to be used towards? Have you got a build in your timeline that feedback's going to go towards? So, love events, love running events, love putting them together. I think people love coming together nowadays to come celebrate something, but it's a lot of time to plan, a lot of money. So you really got to know, what am I getting out of this? And do I have a concrete plan of what I'm going to do with everything that I gather from this event? Because they are great fun, But you shouldn't just do it for the sake of it because you feel like you have to.
All of the above.
I'd just like to add one more thing to that. Can we talk about the beauty of screen recording during playtesting and being able to like have that footage that you can always refer back to? So then your playtesters can say like, oh, I did this, but maybe they didn't explain it well enough. And you've got this footage you can look back on. So yes, real life events, great, but I promise you don't need to spend all that money. As wonderful as it is going to events and having booths, we've got these online resources, you know, launch a playtest on social media, create a Google form, and then ask people to like send a video to your email or upload it to the Google form. You know, there are so many online resources that, you know, we can do this for, not for free, but it's cheaper than events, as much as we love events.
Fantastic. So yeah, I think it's really interesting that maybe the events themselves aren't going to give you the highest cut through in terms of audience, but the insights that being present, having people with controllers in hand, what you can learn from them is going to inform not just your game development but your marketing as well. Oh, people are really enjoying this bit. Let's lean on that and we'll feed that into our trailer or our Steam page and so on.
You ask the right questions.
If you ask the right questions, yeah, you've got to excavate that inside. Yeah, another question there. So, for everybody else in the room, the question is, are there any non-digital, what we used to call, above the line, or is now out of home, any non-digital activities that an indie dev can do that isn't going to break the bank, that can perhaps help your marketing push? Anyone got any experience with that? You've stumped them? No, come on.
Never. This is tough, right? Sort of going into the physical realm rather than the digital, it's gonna cost money, and it really depends on real money. But what we found is really useful. Obviously, like we're talking about events, hosting your own, very, very expensive. Being able to attend something where like-minded folks are going to be there, and also that your audience might attend. Things like Comic-Cons and sort of like other sort of games conference like gatherings are great. I think I see a lot of indies spending money on like physical items to go with their game. So your like stickers, your badges, your plushies, all that kind of thing. They're great and they're cute and people are likely to pick up something and take it home. But again, it's very shotgun. My mimicry wasn't very good, but it's very shotgun, and it's very hit and miss if your game is not super visual. What we found is quite useful is we work a lot on like send-outs, so what we call like influencer send-outs. But essentially picking a very small group of content creators who are super aligned with the game, with the vibes, with the fit. And we really think like we want to get the attention of these guys, because if we get their attention, we have the community's attention that we want. We want to make sure that our community does not miss this game on their timeline, and these are the 4-5 creators that are always on their timeline. Let's have a little conversation with them first. Do not send unsolicited packages to any strangers in the post, please. But have a little conversation with them and see if they would be interested in perhaps receiving something physical. It can be very small. Think a very small box, like little postcards, a very small little trinket that is directly related to your game, that kind of sets you apart from the crowd and acknowledges, this is what makes my game cool, this is why you should remember my game, this is why you should have a physical reminder of my game on your desk at home every day. Like I said, this is very scalable. It can be quite small, it can be very, very big, depending on your budget. But again, this is something I wouldn't dive straight into without at least I would highly recommend a consultant on board before you do anything kind of like this, or anything sort of physical. I think you really do need someone with a bit of marketing experience behind them before you venture into the physical realm, because it can be costly. Yes.
One point I'm trying to figure out how to start this point is, we all know not all games are super successful, so you need to build up your own profile as an industry leader, as someone to know, as a great game developer. So one thing because that will lead into perhaps not marketing your current game, but definitely marketing your future efforts. So go to networking events and just talk to whoever you want to talk to, and accept invites from people to talk that you maybe didn't know you wanted to talk to. Network. Yeah, just network.
Fantastic. Right, I'm just going to very quickly ask one final question. Sorry, I know there's more questions, but you guys are going to be hanging around.
See us after.
Come and chat. So I need to keep us to schedule because I can smell there is food either ready or imminent, and we've got one more talk to get through. But lastly, very quickly, any standout piece of indie game marketing that you've seen that you loved that you wish you did or maybe you did do?
My question was better.
You can tell it to us afterwards.
Thanks, Des.
Something that I noticed recently that I really loved was from Detective 2 Apology. I don't know if you guys saw that. Where she hadn't been online for a few months, and she put up an apology for why she hadn't been online for a few months. And it was sarcastic and funny and witty and a little bit like aggressive, which I quite liked. But she knew her community, and that's the bit that got me really excited. She knew that her community would love it. It wasn't going to be a corporate, hello, we're very sorry if we haven't been online for 3 months. We will do better, I promise. It was very much like, yes, because I've been fucking doing this. Okay, thank you, bye. And it was so funny, and it did absolutely incredibly on social, and suddenly it really kick-started her stuff again. I think partly also the controversy with another apology that's going through the rounds at the moment probably helped. None of us know what you're talking about. If you don't know what it is, come talk to me afterwards, I'll tell you what witty.
I mean, on the Frog Detective example, I randomly know that that tweet got them 5,000 followers and a notable sales bump, which almost never happens from a funny tweet. That was unheard of. That was really good. There's a TikTok account I really like for a game that's called Mr. Sleepy Man.
Yes.
It looks really weird, and it's just this guy who makes songs about game development stuff he's doing in the game. It's big-ish. I look at it, it's wow, it's the biggest account on earth. I love it. It's so good.
One of my favourite things I've seen recently, Fail Better Games just came out with a new title, Mask of the Rose. Not spawned, don't work with them. Would love that. No. But their campaign wasn't huge for it, but they tried something different. They worked with a YouTuber called The Stupendium, who does songs about video games. So they collaborated directly with this creator who, and I've spoken to the marketing manager who put this together. It initially was going to be a very sort of scaled down song, just kind of talking about the lore of the game and what you can do, but apparently the creator themselves got really excited about it, loved the world, loved the characters. They found a little bit more scope, and it turned into essentially a very short musical about the game in which multiple characters were singing. But obviously, not everyone can do that. But it really shows what you can achieve if you have a very bespoke voice. I know I feel like I'm repeating myself, but a bespoke voice and bespoke theme of your game, because the creator was able to latch on, was able to get it, and there were lots of little touches in the video that made you feel like when you booted up the game for the first time, you'd already kind of played it a little bit. You'd already, it's like you'd watched the intro cinematic before you'd even purchased the game. The video was so intrinsically linked to the game that it felt like you were immersed in it before you even pressed buy. So I think doing something creative, out of the box, and intrinsically linked to your game, God, it's so good. And also it's a banger of a song. It's so good. It's my Spotify rap is going to be this song, pretty much just the top.
Oh, let's say Cult of the Lamb Twitter and TikTok. That's spicy. So good. What do I love about that? I love how much the community just got involved in saying, right, has everyone seen the spicy content between the Cult of the Lamb and the Duo Lingo Verge? So I love how much the community just latched onto that and was like, oh, do this crossover, do this crossover, do this crossover. And my background is, I kind of come from a community management background and transitioned into marketing, so I absolutely love getting the community involved. And all I'm going to say is just go look at their Twitter, go look at their TikTok, and just look for that spicy content and get the community involved.
Fantastic. Right, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for your wonderful wisdom. Please do look these folks up on social media. They're going to be hanging around for the next half hour or so. So yeah, feel free to come and ask your unasked questions, Des. Or maybe we'll try and do this again next year, and we'll open with Des's question. Okay, next up we've got Josh, which I think is going to follow on quite nicely from what Lauren was just saying. So we'll have a quick changeover and then final talk with Josh from Future Lab. Thank you, agency panel.